Today I'm working on a small botanical, a little hydrangea, 3 by 3 inches on hot pressed 300-pound watercolor paper. I'm starting out with a little bit of a wet on wet, working with magenta and brilliant pink. In the background, I'm working with phthalo yellow green and an olive green with a little Payne's gray. I like to do a little wash over the whole thing, and then I oftentimes work from the back of the painting and build on top, giving the detail over the background. So you'll see I'll try to do a fair amount of the background first. I've gone into the petals of the flower just slightly, and now I'm coming in with a little bit of intensity in the foreground. To speed things up a little bit, I jumped ahead. Now working a little drier with the brilliant pink, the magenta, and a little bit of alizarin crimson mixed together to get me the purple that I'm looking for. This piece is busy and the petals are a little bit complicated to follow. I've done a light pencil on this one just so I have a guide, and even with that, it's, hydrangeas tend to be multiple petals or are multiple petals, so therefore can be a little bit confusing as to where the painting is going. So honestly, there was times that I couldn't find my focus on where to begin, continue on with the petals. So I found bringing in a little bit of dark, focusing on the center just to relocate the petals center so I knew where I was headed. Sometimes it's more complicated than we realize. Again, going back into the background a little drier to bring out the leaves. And each step I go a little bit drier, starting out wet on wet, and then working my layers up, as you'll see. Working around the whole piece, even with a small piece like this, just 3 inches square. Small doesn't mean easier, that's for sure. Sometimes the tighter area makes it challenging. I use a lot of Payne's gray, and sometimes just dabbing a little bit of the alizarin crimson neutralizes it. That purple I've brought back into the background just to kind of soften that black a little bit and wash it out. I am using a little tan opaque and with the purple to give that a smokier purple look, which seems to be a good color. Trying to keep my strokes going in the direction of the petal and then fanning it out just a little bit so it's not like an outline per se, but gives me some direction. Trying to get that flower to lay on top of the leaves with the shadowing can be difficult, but the more you work the dry area, the more it tends to go in that direction. Bringing in my purple directly from the tube with no mix. Seems to be working in the center. I have added a little bit of Payne's gray to that purple for some of the center of the flower as well, just for intensity. And that seems to be helping. Keeping in mind that, you know, all the pigment fades slightly when it dries. So sometimes I need to go in a little darker than I think I need to be, because I know it will dry a little paler. I'm looking around the whole piece, trying to make sure I've got continuity in the piece all the way around. In other words, don't work one little corner. Bringing in an opaque white to bring out the highlights of the piece. I didn't want a direct white from the paper because it would be too white, so this opaque is like the perfect thing. And then I'm going to go in and I'll do a little bit of the splatter, which is just taking a little bit of the wet paint and splattering it on. It gives a little bit of a pointillism, and then I fan it out in certain areas. Come back in with some more white, and that'll be pretty much it. I'm going to just do the final touch-up. I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial on my botanical. Like and subscribe if you like what I'm doing, and I will see you next time I start another painting. Have a great day. Hope to see you soon.